Hey, welcome to the classroom. I'm here because I'd like to really kind of get you to visualize what it looks like when we start bringing these three things together. Our ISO ratings, our shutter speeds, and our apertures. And the ISO ratings we talked about, 100, 200, 400, 800, 1600, 3200. Some cameras have expansions to 6400 and 12,800. And you'll see these numbers basically double all the way up. And that doubling of numbers is called a one-stop difference. And with each doubling of these ratings in the ISO, what occurs is it becomes more and more sensitive by one stop of light. And this one stop of light also is reflected in shutter speeds as well as your f-stops. Now, of course, 100 ISO is a less sensitive rating. So it takes more light to expose a 100 ISO rating. If you have enough light, like in daylight, sunlight, 100 ISO is fine. Longer exposures are necessary if you are shooting inside. Now, with the 100 ISO rating, of course, this is the highest quality image that we can get. We have reduced digital noise. It is less sensitive to light, but it is a higher quality rating. As we move 2, 4 to 800, once we hit 800, our quality starts to degrade and we start to get digital noise in our imagery as well as we move up. But of course, it takes much less light to expose a 3200 ISO rating than it does a 100. As it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 less stops. So this means that it takes less light. It also gives us more latitude depending upon how and what we're shooting. Same with our shutter speeds. Remember, we talked about B, and B stands for bulb. And as long as we depress the shutter, traditionally we had a mechanical cable release that we released the shutter and kept it open. Today we have electronic cable releases that we can press the button and keep that shutter open for as long as we want, even 8 hours if you wanted to. And this is how some night skies are exposed. And then we see the change of numbers here. Typically on our CCD we have a lot of half and quarter stops in between 30 seconds and 15 seconds. Now I know in my Canon I can start at 30 seconds. Everything longer than that I need a cable release, or I have to hold my shutter down on ball for as long as I want it. But 15 seconds, 8 seconds, 4 seconds, 2 seconds, 1, a half a second, a quarter a second, an eighth a second, a 15th of a second, a 30th of a second. These are all shutter speeds that are very slow. In other words, the CCD or in a mechanical shutter would open and close at 1/30th of a second, or at 2 seconds or 4 seconds, depending upon how much light we wanted to allow in. These are our handheld settings, and sometimes we can shoot at a 30th of a second if we actually hold that camera and we're able to brace ourselves against the wall. But typically, our hand movements at a 30th of a second create shake in that camera and blurring our image. But our handheld settings, and this also depends upon the size lens that we have on there. If we have a 1000mm telephoto lens, it's hard to hold it at a 60th of a second. But these are typically handheld settings. 1/60th of a second, 1/125th of a second, 1/250th of a second, 1/500th of a second, 1/1000th of a second. Today's cameras go up to 1/2000th of a second, 1/4000th of a second, and maybe even further. Talk a little bit about this in a second. Let's go to apertures. Apertures are our f-stops, and they go and range depending upon how fast our lens is, and that's because at 1.4, the diaphragm inside of our lens is much larger, and it gets smaller as we go down to very, very tiny holes inside of our lens, and that's where the light moves through. Circles of confusion are then thrown back onto our picture plane or our CCD. And when we look into the barrel of the lens and we actually use our little button on our digital camera, if we have a digital SLR, to give us a depth of field preview, that lens will stop down. Now these two, 1.4, 2.8, f4, 5.6, 8, 11, 16, 22, 32, 45, and 64. Now at 45 and 64, and probably even 32, most of our lenses, unless they're telephoto lenses, will not have these settings. And only lenses that are specialty lenses for view cameras, which are like the old Bellow style camera that you put the black cloth over, will only go down to f45 and 64. So we don't have to worry about that. But f22 gives us a great depth of field. So that gives us a little bit about ISO rating, shutter speeds, apertures. We see it on the board. In the next video, we're going to bring all these together and I'm going to show you how they work. I'm sure you have a lot of questions about everything we've seen so far.